welcome to these podcasts called Creating the World We Want to Live in. They are based on the science of wellbeing, incorporating evidence from both positive and community psychology. We explore a wide range of issues from education to economics to the environment and many in between. Our overall message is that for the world to flourish in the future, we need to move from short-term thinking to longer-term thinking and away from a focus on what is good just for me to what is in the interests of most, if not all of us. You can read more about this in the first chapter of the book of the same name. This podcast is a conversation between Professor Isaac Pilleltensky and Dr. Sue Roffey, who discuss how we might bring up the next generation to care for each other and the planet we live in. Hello everybody, I'm Dr. Sue Roffey. I'm a psychologist, an academic and an author, and most of my work has been in education around the many issues concerned with student and school wellbeing. I'm currently an honorary associate professor at UCL in London and director of Growing Great Schools Worldwide.
Hello everyone, I'm Isaac Pilleltensky. I'm a professor of Educational and Psychological Studies at the University of Miami. And I have great interest in the relationship between individual, relational, organizational, and community well-being. So I was particularly delighted when I read the book that Sue and her colleagues co-authored, Creating the World We Want to Live in, How Positive Psychology Can Build a Brighter Future. I think it's really a remarkable book using positive psychology principles to improve not just personal, but also systemic well-being. So I'm delighted to be here with Sue today to talk about two of the chapters of the book, a chapter on childhood and a chapter on education. So we will handle this as a conversation. So just to get going, I thought I may ask you, Sue, how would you define child well-being? And what kind of experiences, in your view, are conducive to this vision of child well-being that you propose in the book?
I think that the chapter that I wrote was partly about how we develop young people who are confident, who are caring, who are able to become the best of themselves. And during the chapter, I do this partly by looking at the different things that need to happen for young people at different ages. Now, obviously, there are libraries devoted to child psychology. And of course, all of the chapters are only about 4,000 words each. So it's a summary of some of what I think are the most important things. And I begin by talking about the importance of healthy attachment and how our young people, our babies, need to feel secure when they are first born, that their needs are responded to, so they don't spend a lot of time feeling uncomfortable or hungry or exhausted or in pain, and how important that is for the development of their brain as well as their understanding of who they are in the world. And that secure attachment underpins so much of their future well-being. And what we need to be thinking about is, why isn't parenting on the agenda, on the curriculum of education? Many people, most people become parents, and if they don't become parents, they usually have something to do with young children as maybe aunts and uncles or other relatives. And yet we ignore this incredibly important understanding about how children develop and what their needs are.
So your chapter and the book as a whole, they try to balance the well-being of the individual with the well-being of their surroundings, families, workplace, society. So you are saying that a secure attachment is conducive to personal well-being and also to the ability to contribute to the outside world?
I certainly think it's the beginnings of that. The chapter looks at how do we grow not only children who have a positive sense of self, but also are caring and compassionate to others in the world. And that means that that first attachment allows them to feel secure enough so they're not actually looking for other people to inform who they are, because they learn to be who they are. And the importance as well of the parenting that is responsive and warm and loving, how important that is, but also sets some clear expectations about how you behave towards other people, and also giving children a lot of agency, allowing them or encouraging them to think things through for themselves. There's a number of parents now who don't want their kids to feel badly about anything. They don't want them to experience negative emotions. So when they find themselves in hot water, they often say, well, I'll pull you out of it. So young people aren't given the opportunities to think through how much you make things better. What are the options for you? What's your plan A and what's the pros and cons of that? What's your plan B? And one of the issues for me is that I see parents being so preoccupied with their own lives and so busy, many of them, learning a living, that interaction with children takes time and effort, and sometimes that is not happening. I've got 2 little grandchildren, which is a joy in my life, and I sometimes take them to local parks, and I have lost count of the number of times I have seen parents who spend the whole time with their child in the park on the phone, rather than talking to children about what they're doing and making suggestions for them. And we know, I've talked to teachers, that children are coming to school with an impoverished vocabulary because they're not getting enough interactive conversations with the people around them, unless, of course, they're going to a really good nursery or preschool centre.
You bring up a really important point about the intrusion of social media into the psychological sphere. And you say that parents are talking on the phone, children are spending inordinate amounts of time on social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, wherever that is. So these are cultural trends that are really suffusing our interactions. They're interfering with our interactions with other people. What do you think are some of the consequences of this invasion of social media into the psychological sphere, both for parents and for children?
I think it's very difficult to ignore it. And I think one of the things that's worth saying is that it has many positives. And I think we need to acknowledge the positives of social media. We also need to know that one of the things that social media does is that it makes people compare themselves and their lives to others. And we know that there are a lot of young people now who feel that they don't match up, that they are in some ways not good enough, that they are a loser, that they aren't pretty enough. And the Good Childhood Report for 2021, which has just come out, has said that there are twice as many young people unhappy with their lives as there were a decade ago, and that the big issues for them are things that are happening at school. The constant competition, particularly in this country. It's really very worrying because they're losing their love of learning. And the other is body image, how they look. And I think social media has a great deal to do with that. and have been presented with what is perfection. And we've also got parents who, to some extent, want their children to be not the best of themselves, but somehow perfect. And perfection, the aim for perfection, is very damaging to psychological well-being, because none of us are. You know, perfection's unattainable. And once you accept that and you're able to sort of accept that this is you, then that's a big benefit to your feeling okay in the world and with other people. You know,
I agree. I think you're familiar with my definition of mattering. Basically, mattering consists of feeling valued and having opportunities to add value, to contribute to your life, to the lives of other people, to the community. And what happens, in my view, is that all these constant comparisons that you are describing make me feel devalued, because I can never be as perfect or smart or popular or wealthy or athletic or beautiful as people on social media, and therefore I tend to feel devalued. I can never be good enough, really. And I think a lot of people are just hesitating to add value, because they think, I'm not good enough, so what do I have to contribute, right? And I think that leads to the increase in depression that we have seen among young people.
Yes, I think you're right about that. I think there's a lot of people who don't make the effort because they don't think that they've got it in them. One of the things that I feel is really important, I've talked about the importance of having child development on the curriculum. I also think that we need a great deal more about critical thinking. A lot of my work is in social and emotional learning, and we need to give young people opportunities, structured opportunities, to talk together about what the benefits of social media are and what the dangers are, and how to actually maintain a positive sense of self when other people around you are saying that this is the way to be and this is what is important. But we're also being faced in our society with endless messages by governments, by advertising, about what you actually need to have is more. And one of the things that's a big issue, and you talk about it in Mattering, and we also talk about it in the book quite a lot, is about the importance of fairness. People are reasonably comfortable with a certain level of income or a certain level of material goods, unless they see their lives diminishing and other people's escalating and lots of people having a lot more wealth. So I think that the messages that we get about what we are supposed to be aiming for in life, without giving people the ability, the resources to be able to reach that, is very problematic for our society. It's not just about inequality, although that's very significant. It's also about inequity, not actually having the resources to make progress.
This is bringing up an important point for me about the role of consumerism in our well-being. And I think it used to be that consumerism would lead us to have more goods, to buy a bigger house, more clothes, more shoes, better gadgets. So it used to be about to have. I have to have more. But I think with social media, we're into a whole new sphere of consumerism, which is not just you need to have certain things, you need to be in a certain way.
Yes.
So you have to be in certain ways that are further eroding our well-being. Because it used to be that I need to buy these clothes, these brands, I have to go on these vacations, whatever. But now I have to be the smartest. I have to be the best looking, the most athletic, the most accomplished. So these have and be are really intrusions of consumerism into our well-being. So I wonder, how can you help parents who try to resist that? I think probably action should follow from consciousness. So how can we work with parents, some who already are aware of the negative repercussions of these cultural trends? How do we help those who are aware? And how do we help those who are not even aware of what they're doing when they are on the phone all the time in the park instead of interacting with their kids?
I mean, I think the one thing which is sort of threaded through the chapter on childhood is, first of all, accepting your child for who they are, but doing that really quite overtly, telling them that they are good enough, telling them that they have the strengths, or they're developing the strengths of gentleness, of kindness, of all the other qualities that we want them to have in the world to be who they are. It's having expectations of them that are both subtle and overt. One of the things that matters, I think, is the sorts of things that get talked about at home. So if at home the conversations are all about, oh, you know, look at so-and-so, isn't she beautiful? Look at her figure, look at so-and-so, you know, he's achieved this, he's achieved that, then children hear that and they hear their parents valuing things in a way that isn't a direct conversation with them, but they pick all of that up. I think that awareness is quite hard to maintain. And it's also about gender. You know, I go into a shop to buy a smock for my granddaughter to wear over her clothes when she's doing artwork. She's 2, she gets it everywhere, paint and crayons everywhere. And the first question that I'm asked is it for a little boy or a little girl? A painting smock. And it's like, how do we hear things about how people are being gendered at a very, very early age. And you have to take very active steps about that. And my granddaughter's mother and father are very keen on having books that promote stories, that promote diversity and kindness and friendship and acceptance. And I think that because that's part of her everyday experiences, she's going to learn that she doesn't have to compete with others on that. But then when she goes to school, the peer group are powerful, and they get more powerful as they go through school. So it's not just about having conversations with a 2 and a 3-year-old. It's also maintaining those conversations in a non-haranguing, didactic way, but by asking good questions. What does this make you feel? How would you feel if you were somebody who perhaps had a facial deformity? Do you think that is a reason to not be accepted or to be bullied? And actually having those conversations. There are lots of quite good little films and books, and I think parents and children watching those together is quite valuable. I remember when my children were growing up, we used to watch a few soaps together, and it gave a hook for some quite good conversation. You know, why did you think so-and-so did that? But many, many parents are just sucked in to the dominant culture, which is about competitiveness, consumerism, the importance of me and how well I am doing compared to other people. And the whole of the book is around how on earth do we move away from a positive psychology, which is about me and my happiness or those immediately around me, to what is good for us in the longer term. If we don't do that, basically we're stuffed, because it is the we that matters for things like climate change, and not just my individual actions, but the actions of the bigger we, the corporation, the pressures that we put onto politicians. And at the moment, there's a lot of people with their heads very firmly in the sand.
I couldn't agree more that illustrations such as climate change, no matter how resilient you want to be, climate change will get to you. Pollution will get to you. Raising sea levels will get to you. The temperatures will get to you. And I think that's a useful metaphor for the limits of positive psychology.
Yes.
To the hardiness of individuals as opposed to the hardiness and the strength of the environment. And I see your book as a really welcome addition to decentering positive psychology from me to we, or to us. And I often think about how to help parents and kids and teachers overcome these negative cultural trends. And it seems to me nothing short of a counterculture will do. I asked myself, how do we build a counterculture? Because the dominant culture is very alluring. There are many addictive elements to social media, the instant likes, the instant rewards, the algorithms that are built to hook you in, that shows you advertisement and images that you like, etc. So the dominant culture has a lot of tools at its disposal to get your attention, not for healthy outcomes. So I often think about how do we build a counterculture to undermine all these powerful messages that you talked about.
One of the things that I'm really conscious about is that all of that you were talking about rising sea levels and the heat and all the rest of it, is that it will all be happening and it will be too late to reverse it. And I find that very scary. One of the things that occurs to me is that people who have power and influence also have families and sometimes communities, and they might very well be at one level loving people. So we need to be able to find a way of tuning in to that care for the love that they have maybe for their families, and say, what are you going to do? It'll be after you've gone, but what about the people that come after you? And to try and engage people at a level of influence. For me, well-being is hugely political. The me is all about capitalism and the importance of the individual, whereas the we has been denigrated, particularly in the States, as being seen as socialist and therefore unacceptable. But in fact, the we has been part of human beings' whole lives. We've always relied on each other. We've always needed to be connected with each other. So it's only more recently, which is where we've seen such terrible detriment to mental health and increasing loneliness and relationship breakdown, is because we've been focused on the importance of me so much more. What's in this for me? So we need to go back to the we, to those people who might actually make a difference. And that can be, I know that there's a lot of journalists working in this field and writing some really, really good stuff. But I've just written a blog for the Creating the World Facebook page, which talks about from me to we and uses gun control as an example. So it's away from the freedom of me to own a semi-automatic weapon to the freedom of the community to have their children safe. And it's not hugely political, but Facebook have rejected it. We tried to boost it, pay a little bit to boost it, and they said no. Which astonishes me. And you think, you write and you talk and you teach about these things and have done so most of your adult academic life, as have I. And it's like sometimes I feel like I'm climbing a precipice by my fingernails, and sometimes you drop down a couple of feet. But we need to be getting together with others to build this counterculture. And I think you're absolutely right. And I'm thinking, how do we go about doing that? And we need younger people. You and I have both been in this game for a long time now. How do we get younger people to actually jump on this bus and say, this is what really matters? And how do we get the older generation who have senior positions of influence to say, the lives of the future generations in my family also matter?
I agree very much with your idea of getting people together, because a counterculture is impossible to build by yourself or your family. So I'm thinking, as a community psychologist, how can we get people together and give them concrete tasks? How do we start this cultural revolution? Maybe within a group of a few families. They're making a commitment. We're going to offer an alternative culture to children where we promote caring for yourself and kindness to others, where we promote not just wellness, but also fairness, where your well-being and your freedom is balanced or counterbalanced by the freedom and well-being of other people.
Thanks for listening and for all you are already doing. If you'd like to find out more about what we've been discussing, check out www.creatingtheworldwewanttoLivein.org.